In the vast emptiness of deep space, the Terath, a large alien vessel, floated aimlessly. The ship had been traveling through a dense nebula when a sudden failure in its main engine left it stranded. The crew, a mix of alien species, had tried everything to fix the ship, but their technology, so advanced in many ways, couldn't repair the critical damage. They were lost, alone, and running out of resources. The crew members, desperate and frustrated, realized they had only one option left: to send out a distress signal. It wasn't a decision they made lightly. Their species had never had much interaction with humans, and they didn't know what kind of help they would get. The thought of depending on a human ship felt almost like a last resort, but with no other choice, they decided to broadcast their plea for help across the stars. The message was short, urgent, and full of hope. Stranded in deep space. Please help. Coordinates transmitted. The signal sent out into the unknown, drifting through the galaxy. Back on Earth, the U.S. Horizon, a human exploration vessel, was traveling through space on routine patrol. Captain Elias Carter sat at the helm, monitoring the ship's systems. His crew was small but skilled, and Carter had earned a reputation for keeping calm under pressure. He was reading through some reports when the distress signal came through. At first, it seemed like another automated transmission, something from a long-dead satellite or a derelict ship, but when Carter saw the coordinates, something felt different. A quick analysis showed that the signal was coming from a region of space far from any known human routes, deep in uncharted space. Despite the odds, Carter decided to respond. "Let's check it out," he said, his voice steady. "Set a course for the coordinates. Full speed ahead." The crew of the U.S. Horizon quickly shifted into action. The ship's engines roared to life as they adjusted course. For Carter, this wasn't just another rescue mission. There was something about the distress signal that pulled at his instincts. He had no idea what they were about to face, but he was determined to help. As they neared the coordinates, the U.S. Horizon dropped out of hyperspace. The vastness of space seemed to swallow them whole. The Terath appeared in the distance, a massive, strange ship that looked nothing like any human vessel. It was unlike anything Carter's crew had ever seen. It was a combination of sleek metallic surfaces and intricate, glowing patterns that seemed almost alive. Scanning for life signs, the ship's navigator, Lieutenant Taylor, reported. The silence of space felt deafening as they waited for the results. "There's life aboard," Taylor continued, "but it's not like any species we've encountered." Carter's mind raced. There were no human colonies near this area of space. He was about to make first contact with alien life. And the thought that these aliens had chosen to reach out to humans instead of anyone else was strange. What had made them decide to contact Earth? "Prepare to dock," Carter ordered, his voice unwavering. "Let's see what's going on." The crew of the U.S. Horizon moved quickly, preparing for whatever they might encounter on the Terath. They had no idea what kind of aliens they would meet, but one thing was certain. The galaxy was far bigger and stranger than they had ever imagined. And somewhere aboard the Terath, the alien crew waited, unsure of what to expect from their unexpected human saviors. The U.S. Horizon slowly docked with the Terath, its airlock sealing with a soft hiss as the two ships made contact. Captain Elias Carter stood at the front of his crew, his mind focused on the unknown. He had made countless decisions in his career, but this was something entirely different. First contact. The crew of the Horizon had no idea what to expect from the aliens aboard the Terath. As the airlock opened, Carter stepped forward, flanked by Lieutenant Taylor and a few others. They were ready for anything, but nothing could have prepared them for what they saw. The first beings to step forward from the Terath were tall and broad-shouldered. They were the Yilkor, a species known for their armored exteriors and imposing figures. Their skin was tough, almost like stone, and their eyes glowed with a faint orange light. They looked at the humans with a mix of curiosity and caution. Behind them, more aliens appeared. The Sylphians were smaller, with delicate features and large, expressive eyes. Their skin shimmered with a soft silver hue, and their presence felt almost weightless. The Sylphians were known for their telepathic abilities, and Carter could feel a faint hum in his mind as they made eye contact. Then came the Zatorians. These aliens were a mystery to the humans, their bodies made of shifting energy, glowing with an ethereal light. They didn't walk in the traditional sense. Instead, they floated, their forms flickering in and out of focus. The Zatorians were capable of manipulating energy, but their true capabilities remained largely unknown. The crew of the Horizon stood still, unsure of how to react. These were no ordinary aliens. They were an alliance of different species, each with their own unique traits. For a moment, the two groups simply stared at each other, sizing one another up. Erin, the Sylphian commander, was the first to speak. Her voice wasn't heard in the traditional way, but instead, Carter and his crew felt her words inside their minds. "You are human?" she asked, her voice calm yet full of wonder. Carter nodded. "Yes, I'm Captain Elias Carter of the U.S. Horizon. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The Yilkor, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Their voice was deep and rumbling, like the sound of a distant earthquake. "Help. From humans," one of them growled. "We are not sure your kind has the strength to fix what is broken." Carter remained calm. "I understand your doubt, but we're here to try. We'll work together to get your ship back in shape." The Zatorians flickered in and out of focus as if unsure of what to make of the humans. One of them seemed to form a shape of sorts, a mass of light that pulsed in rhythm with the others. Energy manipulation is a delicate task. The Zatorians' voice resonated in their minds. "Your ship cannot provide the proper energy. How will you help us?" Erin's eyes softened, and her telepathic voice reached out to Carter once more. "Do not mind them. The Yilkor have always been distrustful, and the Zatorians are more concerned with their energy than alliances. But you, humans, have something the others do not understand." "What's that?" Carter asked, intrigued by her words. "Ingenuity," Erin replied. "Your kind adapts quickly. You think outside the box. That is what we need right now." Carter felt a spark of hope. He knew that human ingenuity and adaptability were his crew's greatest strengths. As the first human to make contact with these alien species, he had to prove that humans were more than just survivalists. They were problem solvers. "Let's start working," Carter said with determination. "I may not understand all of your technologies, but together, we'll find a way to fix this ship." The crew of the U.S. Horizon and the Terath's crew began to work side by side, cautiously at first. The Yilkor used their immense strength to move heavy equipment, while the Sylphians helped translate the telepathic instructions needed for the delicate work ahead. The Zatorians manipulated the ship's energy fields, carefully channeling their powers. Despite the differences between the species, there was a growing sense of unity. As they worked, something shifted. The humans weren't just visitors anymore. They were becoming part of the Terath's crew, and the alien crew was beginning to see them not as outsiders, but as allies. The air was tense with the weight of what was happening. Two vastly different species, once separated by light years in distrust, were now working together toward a common goal. And for the first time, Captain Carter believed that this unlikely alliance could succeed. The Terath was a marvel of alien technology, yet even its advanced systems were no match for the damage it had suffered. As the crew of the U.S. Horizon and the alien crew worked together, they realized just how serious the situation was. The ship's main engine was beyond simple repair, and the life support systems were failing faster than anyone anticipated. Captain Carter stood over the diagnostics table, running through the calculations in his mind. The damage was extensive, and without quick action, the Terath might not survive long enough to reach any nearby star systems for help. He glanced up at his crew, Lieutenant Taylor, Engineer Brooks, and the rest of the Horizon team, and saw the same worry reflected in their eyes. "We need to fix this now," Carter muttered to himself. The alien crew was equally troubled. Erin, the Sylphian commander, paced the room, her silver skin shimmering under the lights. Her telepathic presence was calm, but Carter could sense her growing anxiety. The Yilkor, large and powerful, had begun moving large chunks of the ship's broken parts, but their brute strength could only do so much. The Zuturians, who had been floating around, occasionally flickering in and out of focus, seemed frustrated. Their energy manipulation was a delicate skill, and the ship's systems were not designed to work with their kind. "Captain Carter," Erin said, her voice floating into his mind, "we've underestimated the scope of the damage. Our technologies are incompatible in many ways. The Zuturians can only help with the energy fields, and the Yilkor's strength is not enough to repair the engine. You must help us understand your ways of problem solving. Your species can adapt. This is why we reached out." Carter stood still for a moment, considering her words. He knew they were right. The Horizon was built with human adaptability in mind. Humans had a unique ability to think outside the box, to fix things in ways that weren't always based on advanced technology. The alien races, while brilliant in their own ways, were too tied to their methods to see the bigger picture. "Let's take a step back," Carter said to his team. "We need to approach this from a human perspective. We need to think simple." The Horizon crew looked at each other, unsure of what Carter had in mind, but it was clear that his confidence gave them a renewed sense of purpose. "Brooks, you've worked with strange systems before. Start by disconnecting the auxiliary power lines from the main engine. Maybe we can give the engine a temporary power boost," Carter suggested. Engineer Brooks nodded. "On it, Captain." Meanwhile, Erin moved closer to Carter, her telepathic thoughts a soft hum in his mind. "You believe that the solution is in simplicity. Our technology is far more advanced. Are you sure this is the right approach?" Carter gave a small smile. "Sometimes advanced technology complicates things. Let's try something basic and see what happens." Brooks worked quickly, his hands flying over the control panels. After several tense minutes, the ship's power system flickered to life. The engine, while still damaged, hummed with a new energy. It wasn't enough to get the Terath fully operational, but it was a start. "It's a temporary fix," Brooks said, wiping sweat from his brow. "We've redirected enough power to keep the life support online for a while longer, but we'll need a more permanent solution." Carter nodded, turning back to the alien crew. "It's something we can't afford to give up. We'll keep working together." The Yilkor grunted in approval, their massive arms crossing over their chests. They were starting to respect the humans, recognizing their ability to act when it counted. The Zuturians, though still mysterious, hovered closer, their energy patterns pulsing more steadily now. Even they seemed intrigued by the humans' methods. Erin looked at Carter with new respect. "You are right, human. Simplicity can often lead to the best solutions. Perhaps we have underestimated you after all." Captain Carter gave a slight nod. "It's not about underestimating anyone. It's about working together. We all have something to offer." The tension in the room began to lift as the alien crew saw the humans not as outsiders, but as part of the team. The once divided crew of the Terath was slowly beginning to unite under a common purpose. The odds were still against them, but with each step forward, the possibility of survival grew stronger. And in that moment, Carter realized that the struggle they faced wasn't just about fixing the ship. It was about proving that even in the vast, cold darkness of space, unlikely allies could make a difference. The tension in the Terath's control room was palpable as Captain Carter stood before the ship's damaged engine. His crew worked diligently to implement the temporary repairs, but time was running out. The Terath's life support systems could only hold for so long, and every moment felt like a race against the clock. "Status report, Lieutenant Taylor," Carter said, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Still holding, Captain, but the engine's main power core is unstable. We got maybe 3 hours before it shuts down completely," Lieutenant Taylor responded, her face tense as she monitored the readouts on the console. 3 hours, Carter muttered, his mind working quickly. He turned to look at the alien crew, who were also watching the clock tick down with growing concern. Erin, the Sylphian commander, stepped forward, her silver eyes focused on him. "Captain Carter," she said softly in his mind, "we are running out of options. Your humans have done all they can, but we need something more drastic." Carter met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words. He knew what she was implying. There was no time left for small fixes. They needed to find a solution fast, or they would all be stranded, floating through the void of space with no hope of rescue. "We need to act now," Carter said firmly. "What about your power conduits? Are there any we can reroute to boost the engine?" Erin's telepathic presence hummed with a mix of frustration and thought. "The conduits are fused, damaged beyond repair. Even if we could reroute energy, the ship's systems are too fragile. If we try anything more, the engine could explode. We need a miracle." Carter thought for a moment. A miracle. He had no special powers, no alien technology at his disposal, but he had something the aliens didn't, something that had saved human lives countless times before: creativity and resourcefulness. He turned to his crew. "Brooks," Carter called to his engineer, "can we reroute the Horizon's power to help stabilize their core?" Brooks looked up from the panel he was working on. "It's risky, Captain. If we push too much power through their systems, we could damage both ships. But it might work." Carter made a quick decision. "We don't have much choice. Do it." The humans immediately got to work, carefully making the necessary adjustments. They connected the Horizon's auxiliary power to the Terath's core, bypassing some of the most damaged sections. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a shot. As Brooks worked his way through the delicate process, Carter turned to the alien crew. "We're giving this ship as much power as we can, but it's not guaranteed to hold. We need to prepare for the worst. Can you help us stabilize your ship from the inside?" The Yilkor, who had been silent for some time, stepped forward. Their deep voice rumbled as they spoke. "You are asking us to trust you with our life force, human. You cannot know what you ask." Carter met the Yilkor's gaze without hesitation. "I know it's dangerous, but we don't have the luxury of waiting. We're in this together now." The Yilkor leader looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. We will trust you." With the combined effort of the Horizon crew and the alien species aboard the Terath, the power flow was adjusted, and the ship's systems began to hum with new life. It wasn't enough to fully repair the damage, but it was enough to keep the engine running for a while longer. But just as hope began to rise, a new problem emerged. A warning alarm blared through the ship as a nearby asteroid field suddenly entered their path. The Terath wasn't maneuverable enough to avoid it, and the Horizon was too far to provide a clear escape route. The Zetorians, still floating nearby, pulsed with urgency. "The energy fields cannot hold if we're hit," one of the Zetorians transmitted. "We must divert energy to shields immediately." Carter's heart raced. They had no choice but to face the asteroid field head-on. There was no time to waste. He turned to the Yilkor. "Can you help us? We need your strength to reinforce the shields. Now." The Yilkor leader stepped forward, his massive form blocking the path to the control panel. "This will drain us, human, but we will fight for our survival." The Yilkor placed their hands on the ship's control panel, and the ship's shields began to glow brighter as the alien crew channeled their energy into them. The asteroid field was close now. Carter gripped the armrest of his seat, every instinct telling him to brace for impact. They were about to face their greatest test yet, a true trial of their alliance. The human ingenuity, alien strength, and teamwork would be pushed to the limit. Would it be enough to survive? "Brace for impact," Carter ordered, his voice calm, but the uncertainty in his heart mirrored in every crew member's eyes. The real test of their unity had begun. The asteroid field loomed ahead, a vast and chaotic storm of rock and debris. The Terath's shields were holding for now, but Carter knew they couldn't last forever. The energy from the horizon was helping, but it wasn't enough to make the ship fully invulnerable. The shields flickered as another wave of asteroids hurtled toward them, some large enough to tear the ship apart. "Hold steady," Carter shouted, gripping the console in front of him. He could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His crew, though trained for countless dangers, had never faced something like this before. It was more than just their lives at risk now. It was the survival of an entire alien crew, an alliance that had only just begun. The Yilkor, their massive forms standing like stone giants, continued to channel their energy into the shields. The effort was draining them, their bodies beginning to pulse with the strain. The Zetorians, floating just above the control panels, focused their energy fields on reinforcing the ship's power conduits, trying to make sure everything stayed operational. "It's not enough," Lieutenant Taylor shouted from the navigation console. "We're not going to make it through the field at this speed. We need to maneuver." Carter's mind raced. The Terath wasn't designed for fast turns, and the asteroid field was coming at them too quickly. It was a simple choice. Either the ship would be torn apart, or they had to find a way to break through with all their might. "Can we use the Horizon's thrusters to push them through?" Carter asked, his voice tight. Brooks, the engineer, was already working on it. "We can try, but it'll drain our power systems fast. The Horizon isn't built for pushing another ship, especially not one as large as the Terath." There was a brief moment of silence. Carter looked out the viewport, watching the asteroids coming closer. The ship could barely avoid the smaller debris, let alone the larger, more dangerous rocks. "We have no choice," Carter said, his voice firm. "We'll do it. Get ready to fire up the thrusters." As the crew moved into action, Carter turned his attention back to the alien crew. Erin, the Selfian commander, was standing nearby, her eyes glowing faintly. Her telepathic presence was calm but urgent. "This is it, human. Can you truly pull us through this?" Her voice echoed in his mind. "We'll do everything we can," Carter replied, meeting her gaze. "You're not alone in this. We'll get through this together." The Zetorians, their energy forms flickering as they grew more intense, added their power to the shields once more. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were beginning to believe in the possibility of hope, a hope they hadn't had for a long time. The human resolve was starting to infect them, a realization that despite the odds, there was a chance. "Thrusters online," Brooks called out. "We're ready to go." Carter turned to Taylor, who was already adjusting the controls. "Take us through, Lieutenant. Full speed ahead." With a roar, the Horizon's thrusters fired, sending a surge of power into the Terath's hull. The larger ship lurched forward, its massive frame trembling under the combined force. The Terath started to push through the asteroid field, narrowly avoiding several smaller rocks, but the larger ones were still a threat. "Brace for impact," Taylor shouted as a huge asteroid loomed in front of them. In that split second, Carter could see everything. The alien crew working together, the human crew giving their all. Time seemed to slow as the Terath surged forward, the asteroid field closing in. The ship's shields flared brightly as the asteroid grazed them, sending shockwaves through the hull. For a moment, Carter feared they wouldn't make it, but then the field began to clear. The massive rocks were left behind, the Terath still intact, if not a little battered. The ship continued forward, slowing down as the danger passed. The control room erupted in a mix of relief and exhaustion. The Yilkor released their hold on the energy fields, their bodies collapsing to the ground from the strain. The Zetorians flickered weakly, their energy fields flickering and fading. But despite their fatigue, they had made it. "We did it," Brooks whispered, a grin spreading across his face. "We're through." Carter exhaled deeply, his heart still pounding in his chest. "That was too close," he said, rubbing his forehead. "But we made it." Erin, standing beside him, reached out with a gentle telepathic touch. You have saved us. We did not believe it was possible." Your human strength, your ingenuity." She trailed off, her voice full of wonder and respect. Carter looked at her, smiling. "We all made it through together. That's what matters." The room was filled with a sense of quiet victory. The ship was damaged, the journey ahead still uncertain. But for the first time, the Tirath floated in the silence of space, the asteroid field now far behind them. The ship was battered but still intact, thanks to the combined efforts of the Horizon crew and their alien allies. Captain Carter stood at the bridge, staring at the stars through the viewport. They were out of immediate danger, but the journey ahead was far from over. The Tirath's damaged engine would need extensive repairs, and their supplies were running low. They couldn't stay in deep space forever. "Captain, the damage is worse than we thought," Lieutenant Taylor said, her voice heavy with concern. "The engine's core is almost beyond repair. We need to find a star system with a working repair station, or we'll be stuck here." Carter nodded grimly. They were running out of time. The Tirath couldn't stay in its current state for long, and the Horizon couldn't keep offering power boosts forever. They needed to make contact with someone. Anyone who could help. "We'll need to find a system with a nearby station or habitable planet," Carter said. "Start searching for any signs of civilization. We'll have to take the risk." Meanwhile, Erin, the Selfian commander, had gathered her crew in the adjacent room. The Yilkor were resting, their energy drained from their earlier efforts. The Zetorians, still glowing faintly, were floating around the room, speaking to one another in their strange, rhythmic pulses. Erin's silver eyes met Carter's as he entered the room. "Captain," she said, her voice gentle in his mind, "we owe you our lives. We are grateful, but we know you are still facing a difficult task. You may not find what you seek." Carter met her gaze, his resolve firm. "We'll find a way. Humans don't give up easily. We'll keep searching until we find something that can help us." Erin paused for a moment, her thoughts heavy with something unspoken. "There is something we should tell you," she said finally. "The Tirath is more than just a ship. It is also a symbol of our alliance. Our species have never worked together like this before. What you've done, what we've done together, has created something new. You have united us." Carter frowned slightly. "I don't understand. What does that mean for us now?" "It means that we are stronger together," Erin replied. "We do not know what the future holds, but we know that if we stand together, we will find a way forward. You are now part of our alliance, Captain Carter. You and your crew have proven that humans are more than just survivors. You are builders. You are problem solvers. That is something none of us knew we needed until now." Carter was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. He had always known humanity was capable of greatness, but hearing it from an alien race, the same species that had once doubted them, made the victory feel even more powerful. "Thank you, Erin," Carter said softly. "We're in this together now. All of us." As the two stood in silence, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The Horizon crew, standing nearby, shared a look of quiet pride. They had come a long way from the initial skepticism they had felt about working with the alien species. Now it was clear that they were no longer just allies by necessity. They were becoming a united force. Hours passed as the crews continued their search for a solution. The stars outside the Tirath's windows gleamed like distant beacons, offering hope that there was still something, or someone, out there. The Horizon had already sent out distress signals, but the chances of a response were slim. Still, they had no choice but to keep trying. Then, just as the hope of finding help began to feel like a distant dream, a signal came through. A faint signal, weak but unmistakable. The ship's comms officer, Lieutenant Brooks, quickly patched it through. "We've got something," Brooks said, eyes wide. "It's a signal from a nearby system. It's weak, but it's there." Carter's heart leaped. This could be the breakthrough they needed. "Where is it coming from?" Brooks studied the readings. "It's from a small planet in the Andromeda system. It looks like a research station. If they have the resources, they might be able to help us." The room erupted in a mixture of excitement and relief. Erin's voice echoed in Carter's mind once again. "This is it. This is the chance we've been waiting for." Carter nodded, a determined smile crossing his face. "Set a course for the Andromeda system. We'll make it there." With renewed hope, the crew of the Horizon and the Terrath prepared for the final leg of their journey. The long road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, they could see a path forward, and no matter the challenges that lay ahead, they knew they would face them together. The Terrath moved slowly through space, heading toward the Andromeda system. The signal they had received was faint but promising. The crew worked tirelessly to keep the ship running, but the journey wasn't easy. The Terrath was still badly damaged, and the energy reserves were low. Every system on the ship seemed to be on the edge of failure, but they were moving forward, driven by hope. Captain Carter stood in the control room, watching the stars as the ship steadily approached the planet. The research station was located on the surface, a small outpost with a simple goal: to study nearby celestial bodies. It wasn't a military station, and it wasn't equipped for large-scale repairs, but it was their only hope. "We'll be there in 2 hours," Lieutenant Taylor reported, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We should be able to make it without any further complications." Carter nodded but couldn't shake the feeling that things had been going too smoothly. They had survived the asteroid field, managed to keep the Terrath functioning, and now they were on their way to what could be their salvation. But there were too many unknowns. He knew they had to be prepared for anything. "I want all crew members on alert," Carter said, his voice firm. "We don't know what we're walking into. Stay sharp and be ready for anything." As the hours passed, the tension in the air grew. Everyone on board the Terrath felt the weight of the situation. Erin, the Selfian commander, had been quiet since they received the signal. She stood near the back of the room, her silver eyes fixed on the stars, deep in thought. "This station," she said quietly, speaking into Carter's mind, "it is not just a research outpost. The signal we received, it may have been intentionally sent. There may be others out there." Carter's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? You think it's a trap?" Erin hesitated before answering. "I do not know, but I have a feeling. Something about this doesn't feel right." Carter considered her words carefully. They had already come so far, and they couldn't afford to hesitate now. But he couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. He turned to Taylor. "Prepare a team to land on the station. We'll need to check it out first. If it's a trap, we'll deal with it, but we need to be cautious." Lieutenant Taylor nodded. "Understood, Captain." As the ship neared the planet, the research station came into view, an isolated structure sitting on the edge of a large crater. The station was small, with several antennae reaching out toward the sky. There was no sign of life, no movement around the station. Everything looked quiet. Too quiet. Commencing landing sequence, Taylor called out as the Terrath began its descent toward the planet's surface. Carter stood in front of the viewport, watching the station grow closer. His mind raced with possibilities. Could this research station really help them? Or was it something far more sinister? The uncertainty weighed on him, but there was no turning back now. The Terrath landed smoothly on the surface, the landing gear scraping against the rocky ground as the ship came to a stop. The crew gathered in the airlock, ready for whatever awaited them on the surface. Carter's heart beat faster, a mixture of anticipation and fear building inside him. "Everyone stay sharp," Carter ordered. "We don't know what we'll find. Let's move out." The airlock doors hissed open, and the crew stepped onto the barren planet. The surface was cold and lifeless, the ground covered in dust and scattered debris. The research station loomed ahead, its metal walls weathered by time. The station's exterior lights flickered weakly, casting an eerie glow over the scene. As they approached the entrance, the doors slid open automatically, revealing the dark interior of the station. The air inside was stale. the silence almost deafening. There were no signs of life. No crew, no workers, not even a trace of activity. The place felt abandoned, but everything seemed to be in working order. "Let's split up and search the station," Carter said. "Check for anything that could help us. Resources, supplies, and most importantly, any signs of life." The crew scattered throughout the station, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. It didn't take long before they found something. An open terminal, its screen displaying a message. Carter approached the terminal, his heart racing. The message was simple, but it sent a chill down his spine. "Do not trust the signal. They are coming. Prepare." The words flashed on the screen, then disappeared. Carter stared at the empty terminal, his mind spinning. Who had sent this warning? And who was coming? "Captain." Erin's voice echoed in his mind, urgent. "The signal was not from this station. Someone is trying to trap you." The air grew colder, and Carter's instincts screamed that they had walked right into a trap. But it was. The silence inside the research station was unbearable. The only sound was the faint hum of the station's power systems, struggling to stay active. The crew spread out, cautiously searching the dark hallways. Every shadow seemed to hide something, and every creak of the building made the tension worse. Captain Carter stood at the front, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. He hadn't expected the situation to turn this dangerous. The warning message on the terminal was still fresh in his mind, and it sent an icy feeling down his spine. Someone was watching them, someone who didn't want them to trust the signal. The worst part was that they didn't know who or what was out there. "Stay in contact," Carter ordered over the comms. "Report anything unusual immediately." "Understood," came Taylor's voice. "We're searching the main corridors now. No sign of life. Everything is eerily quiet." As the crew continued their search, Erin's presence in Carter's mind grew stronger. "Captain, I sense a disturbance. There is something in this place, something hidden." Carter's grip tightened on his weapon. "Something we can't see." "Yes, it feels wrong, like it is not part of this place." Erin's voice trembled slightly. "Be careful." Carter nodded, but he didn't have time to consider her warning further. Lieutenant Taylor's voice cut through the air. "Captain, you need to see this." Carter immediately made his way to the source of the call, his pulse quickening. The others had gathered in the station's central control room. The room was dimly lit, with consoles scattered throughout, but something in the center of the room caught Carter's attention. There on the floor lay a body, a human body. "Is it one of the researchers?" Carter asked, kneeling beside the figure. Taylor examined the body carefully. "Not sure. There's no sign of identification, and the uniform is unlike anything I've seen before. It's in rough shape. Wounds look fresh." The body was lying in a pool of blood, and Carter could see signs of struggle. His heart raced. This wasn't just an abandoned station. Someone had been here recently, and they had been attacked. "Whoever did this is still here," Carter said, his voice low. "We need to find out who they are before we're next." Erin's voice again filled his mind, more urgent this time. "Captain, the disturbance is growing stronger. They are coming. It's not safe." "What do you mean coming?" Carter asked aloud, trying to make sense of it. Before Erin could respond, the lights in the station flickered, plunging the room into darkness. The power systems groaned, and then the lights came back on, but they were dimmer. A low, mechanical noise began to echo through the hallways. "What was that?" Taylor asked, eyes wide. "It's them," Carter said grimly. "The ones who sent the warning." The crew rushed to the nearest terminal, hoping to find something that could help them understand what was happening. But as they worked, the strange noise grew louder, closer. And then they heard it, the sound of footsteps. Heavy footsteps, dragging across the floor, coming closer. Carter's heart pounded in his chest. "Get ready," he whispered. "Stay close, and stay sharp." The footsteps grew louder, and a dark figure appeared in the doorway. It was tall, humanoid, but its features were twisted, its eyes glowing an eerie green. It was covered in thick armor, a strange weapon in its hand. The crew froze, eyes wide with shock. The figure was unlike anything they had ever seen. "Who are you?" Carter demanded, raising his weapon. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it raised its weapon, pointing it directly at the crew. "Get down," Carter shouted, diving behind a nearby console. A bright flash of energy shot from the weapon, hitting the console and causing it to explode. Sparks flew everywhere, and the crew scattered to take cover. "What the hell is that thing?" Taylor shouted from behind a metal support beam. "I don't know," Carter replied, his mind racing. "But it's not friendly. We need to fight back." The figure moved closer, its glowing eyes scanning the room. It didn't seem to care about the human crew at all. It was looking for something, or someone, else. "Stay down," Carter ordered. "We'll have to outsmart it." The crew opened fire, their weapons firing in quick bursts. But the figure seemed to be impervious to their shots, its armor deflecting the blasts with ease. It moved toward them with a terrifying purpose, and it was clear that they were no match for it. Carter's mind raced. He needed a plan. They had to find a way to defeat this thing before it overwhelmed them. "Erin, do you have any suggestions?" Carter thought desperately, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "It is not just one of them," Erin replied. "There are more. They are part of an ancient force, hunters who have been tracking us for generations." "Hunters?" Carter's heart sank. "What do we do?" The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the dark, abandoned corridors of the station. The crew huddled together in the shadows, their hearts racing, as the strange, armored figure moved closer. The blast from its weapon had left a trail of destruction, and it was only a matter of time before the rest of its kind arrived. Captain Carter's mind was focused. The creature's presence, its deadly weapon, and its strange, glowing eyes had thrown them off balance, but they had no choice now. They needed to find the core, the source of the creature's power, and destroy it before they were completely overwhelmed. "Move fast, stay quiet," Carter whispered, his voice sharp with authority. "We need to get to the control room. That's where the station's main power systems are. If we can find the core, we can stop them." Lieutenant Taylor nodded, her grip tightening on her weapon. "Understood, Captain. But where do we even start looking?" Carter's gaze swept over the room. Then he pointed toward a narrow hallway at the far end. "There. If the core is anywhere, it'll be there. Let's move." The crew moved quickly but cautiously, staying low to the ground and avoiding the open spaces where they could be spotted. The hum of the station's failing power systems filled the air, and the occasional flicker of light made the atmosphere even more eerie. Every shadow seemed to hold danger, and the further they ventured into the station, the more uneasy they felt. As they reached the control room, the door was locked. Carter motioned for the crew to stop. They couldn't afford to make noise or draw attention. "Brooks, get that door open," Carter said quietly, his voice steady. Brooks, the ship's tech officer, moved to the door's control panel. Her fingers worked quickly, trying to override the lock. A few tense seconds passed before the door clicked open with a soft hiss. Inside the control room, the air was thick with dust. The large main console flickered on and off, and several monitors blinked erratically. It was clear the station was falling apart, but Carter's eyes were fixed on the center of the room, where a strange, pulsating light came from beneath the floor panels. "There," Carter muttered. "That's the core." The crew moved toward the source of the light, carefully lifting the floor panels to reveal a large alien device. It was unlike anything they had seen before, with smooth metallic surfaces and intricate patterns running along its sides. At its core, a bright green energy pulsed steadily, emitting a low hum. "That's it," Taylor said, her voice tense. "That's what's powering them." Carter nodded, his mind racing. "We need to disable it before it calls more of them here. It's the only way we can stop this." Erin's voice echoed in Carter's mind once more. It is not just a power source. It is a beacon. A signal that calls the hunters. Carter's heart sank. Then destroying it might not be enough. We need to shut down the signal too. The core's power will be enough to stop the signal. You must destroy it completely. Do not hesitate. Erin's voice was urgent, her thoughts heavy with the weight of the situation. Carter gave a sharp nod. All right. We do it now. Everyone, get into position. The crew spread out around the core, taking careful aim at the device. Carter could feel the tension in the room, the weight of the decision bearing down on them. If they didn't succeed, the station would be overrun, and they would be trapped, left to face whatever horrors the hunters had in store for them. Taylor looked at Carter, her expression hard. On your mark, Captain. Carter took a deep breath, focusing all his thoughts on the task at hand. There was no room for mistakes. They couldn't afford failure. They had come this far, and they weren't going to give up now. Now, Carter commanded. The crew opened fire, their weapons aimed at the core. A storm of gunfire filled the air, but the core's surface was tough, resistant to their blasts. They had to find a weak point, a vulnerability, or they would run out of time. Carter moved closer, examining the core carefully. He could see faint cracks starting to form along its surface as the shots continued to hit. He raised his weapon and fired directly at the center of the core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the core's green energy flared, the entire station shaking as a massive surge of power coursed through the walls. The lights flickered wildly, and the hum of the core grew louder, almost deafening. Carter's eyes widened. It's overloading. We've got to get out of here. Now. He turned and shouted at the crew. Move. Get to the turret. The crew sprinted toward the door, the room shaking with every passing second. The station was on the brink of collapse, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. As they rushed down the hallways, the building began to groan and tremble, and the distant sound of the hunters' footsteps grew louder. Get to the airlock, Carter yelled. They burst through the station's main doors just as the ground beneath them cracked. The Tirath was waiting, its engines still functional, but the clock was ticking. They had moments before the station would explode. Everyone aboard, Carter ordered as they made a desperate dash toward the ship. The station behind them erupted in a blinding explosion, a shockwave of energy sweeping through the air as the core collapsed, taking the hunters' power with it. The crew of the Tirath barely made it to the ship in time. The door ceiling shut behind them as they blasted off into the safety of space. As they flew away from the destroyed station, Carter let out a long breath. They had survived, but it had come at a great cost. The threat of the hunters was far from over. But for now, they had won, and they would be ready for whatever came next. The Tirath drifted silently through the empty space, the remnants of the destroyed research station still visible in the distance. The crew stood in the ship's observation room, gazing out at the vastness of space. The destruction they had left behind was a somber reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. Yet they had survived. For now. Captain Carter stood near the viewport, arms crossed, his mind heavy with thoughts. The explosion that destroyed the station had sent a powerful shockwave through space, signaling the end of the hunters' immediate threat. But something told him that this wasn't the last they'd see of them. Erin's words echoed in his mind. The hunters are ancient. Their reach is far. They will return. Captain. Taylor's voice broke his thoughts. She stood behind him, her face tired but resolute. We've done it. The station is gone, the signal's cut off, and the hunters are no longer a threat. For now. Carter nodded, but his expression remained serious. For now, yes, but this war is far from over. Those creatures, the hunters, they're not something we can just forget about. They were tracking us for a reason. Taylor frowned. Do you think they knew about us? That they were hunting humans? Carter shook his head slowly. I don't know. But we've made a powerful enemy, and I won't take any chances. We need to be ready for what's coming. Erin's voice suddenly filled Carter's mind, clearer than before. "You are right, Captain. The hunters will return. But we will help you. We must stand together, or they will destroy us all." The words were calm, but the weight behind them was undeniable. Carter turned to face her. "Erin, what exactly are these hunters? Why are they after us?" Erin hesitated, her silver eyes reflecting the deep uncertainty she felt. "They are an ancient race, driven by a singular purpose: to hunt and destroy anything they consider a threat. Over the centuries, they have wiped out countless civilizations, and now they have turned their attention to the human race." Carter's stomach tightened. The hunters' motives were terrifying, and knowing they had been tracking them for so long made everything feel even more dangerous. "We'll need to prepare," Carter said, his voice firm. "But we can't just keep running. We need to know more about them, understand their weaknesses, find a way to fight back." "I agree," Erin responded. "The hunters' technology is advanced, but it is not invincible. There are others out there who have faced them, and they can help. But we must find them first." Carter turned back to the viewport, the stars stretching out endlessly before them. There were so many unknowns in this universe, so many dangers waiting to be discovered. But one thing was clear: the fight was just beginning. "We'll start by finding these allies," Carter said, determination settling in his voice. "We'll gather what we need to fight back. We won't be unprepared again." Taylor stepped up beside him. "And if we find them, what's next?" Carter looked at her, his gaze unwavering. "Then we prepare for war." The crew went to work, each member focusing on their own task as the Turath powered forward into the unknown. They knew there was no time to waste. They had made it this far, but their enemies were relentless. The hunters would stop at nothing to track them down, to wipe them out. But they would not go down without a fight. Carter wouldn't let it happen. As the ship traveled deeper into the galaxy, the crew found themselves united by a common purpose. They were not just survivors anymore. They were warriors, preparing for a battle that could decide the fate of the entire human race. They would find the allies they needed, gather the strength to face the hunters, and stand together against the threat. They would not be hunted. They would be the hunters. The stars outside the ship seemed to burn brighter now, a reminder that there was more to this universe than just the darkness. Somewhere out there, there were answers, allies, and hope, and Carter would find them, no matter the cost. The fight for survival had only just begun.